Hey guys, I think we're going. It didn't give me the little beep or countdown or anything, but I hope this is recording. Just want to go over the first little PowerPoint with you here for AP Bio. It's actually not very many slides, not very technical. It's just like the chapter one big ideas type thing. So big ideas kind of leading into the whole thing about science and biology and things. What is science? How does it work? How does it differ from other ways of thinking? And then what are those properties of a living thing? You'll probably remember a lot of those from like regular bio and pre-AP. So um, what is science? What isn't science? It's really just a way to think. It's a body of knowledge. The way to think you guys should remember is like the scientific method, going through all of that and kind of looking for answers and solve, things about, why and how things happen. And when scientists do that, then they create a body of knowledge, right? They build on each other. Some scientists figure something out, and then, somebody else doing research in a different part of the world says, oh, well, if you know that, then, I now know how to solve this problem that I'm working on, and I'm going to build on what you did. And that's how we kind of build out the knowledge, right? Scientists just kind of keep building on each other throughout the years, and we get this big body of knowledge about how things go. So here's a little different way to look at the scientific method. If you look at these words, if we were doing a class discussion, I'd be kind of asking you to kind of think through some of this. You can pause the video and kind of look at this and say, well, how do I make the scientific method fit into this little graphic here? So feel free to do that if you want. The see something, when scientists see something out in nature, that's an observation. That's usually the first part of the scientific method. Think of a reason why. That would be a hypothesis. Well, I saw something. I wonder how this goes. Maybe it's like this. Figure out a way to check your reason. That would be your experiment. And then the big and question mark. So now what? I did the experiment. What does this tell me? So those would be like your results, your conclusion. This one's, one of my favorites. Now everyone gets to dump on you, which doesn't really happen in school too much. We don't do too much of this because the experiment's more straightforward. But in the real world, you have to do experiments and then start sending manuscripts out before you publish, and all the experts in your field get to kind of dump on you and tell you what you did wrong. And then you have to go back to the drawing board and you kind of have to repeat until consensus is formed, right? You have to go back through, and maybe parts 1 and 2 were fine, but parts 3 and 4 were messed up, or your method wasn't good, or you did something that was outdated, or you used an improper technique or something like that. So people in your field get to kind of tell you how you need to correct your stuff before it will get published. And once you're published, now you're part of that body of knowledge. So don't worry about this one. This was just kind of a silly slide, but consider all possibilities, no assumptions. Scientists try not to make too many assumptions, right? They leave all the doors open until they actually see evidence that something isn't true or not. But I'm not going to walk you through this. Nothing you're going to need to know. Just kind of a silly one. You can look through it and probably figure it out. And again, nothing too big with this one. It's just all the textbooks, when they give you a scientific method, they show you that method linearly, right? They usually write it in a column, and you do step 1 and step 2 and then step 3. And in the real world, it's really not like that. It's much more collaborative, and it's much more back and forth at all of these different stages, which you can tell from this diagram here and all the arrows that are going back and forth, and how there's so much give and take within how things are actually done in the real world. So hopefully that one makes a little more sense to you. Again, nothing to memorize or anything like that, but hopefully that makes a little bit more sense to you. We just talked, science ways of thinking versus other ways of thinking. These are all different ways of thinking. So we had a chat about, what is philosophy? What's the way that philosophers think? And if you haven't had much experience with them, the one thing they really ask is why. Like philosophers always want to know why, and then they answer that question, and they say, well, why? And then you have to answer that question. It's almost like dealing with like a 3-year-old that keeps asking the why question to like get you down to like the nuts and bolts of what's really happening. And that's how philosophy works. But there is a correlation there to science, right? Because science is very much asking why a lot of the time. On the religious side, no matter the faith, no matter the religion, across the world, across the globe, all of the different things that are going on, it's really based on belief or faith, right? That's pretty much all religions are based on a belief and a faith that the teachings are what they are, and they are the way things go, and that sort of thing. So that one's a little bit different than science, where science, it's more kind of like the state of Missouri, the show me state, right? It's more based on evidence. It's more, you have to show me. It's not good or bad, the difference between them. It's just different. And we'll talk about that when we get to the evolution unit. Technology, obviously, very hand in hand with science. With technology, the main idea, the main definition of that is just trying to make life easier. And so technology is not just electronics. It was the wheel. It was wooden tools way long ago. So technology, whatever has made life easier is technology. And so now, obviously, very interconnected with all the devices and all of the technology we have to do experiments and stuff like that. Clearly, they go together pretty good. You may not think of art as being related to science, but in my opinion, it clearly is for several reasons. If you think of an artist, what do you call that person? What is that artist typically, no matter what kind of art they do? Typically, the word that comes up is creative, right? And so, can you relate that to being a scientist? Well, I hope so, because in order to solve some of the toughest problems, you have to be super creative in the way you think and the way you kind of think outside the box and approach a problem from a different way that someone else hasn't. So you still have to be creative. And artists are also very talented. They're very skilled. Not everyone is a great artist. I certainly am not a great artist because I don't possess the skill or the talent. And some scientists, some lanes of the science industry, you really need to be skilled and talented to do that particular thing. So I think they're pretty much they're related to all of these different things in a lot of different ways. Modes of scientific thought. So here I'm going to give you a few modes of thought. All of the words that I just populated on the right-hand side, those are the little teeny tiny words under these pictures you can see. And you would have seen something like this in like regular bio before. But this mode of scientific thought is called reductionism. So reductionism is breaking things down from complex to simple into the simple parts that we can then work with and see how they go. And if we know how the simple parts work, then we can see how things emerge into the more complex things. And so you kind of work backwards a little bit. And so you can see, you're probably used to seeing this list on the right. You would have seen it in regular bio for like ecology and stuff like that, how we break things down. So we'll be talking about things at all of these levels throughout the year. The second mode of thought is systems thinking. And systems thinking is pretty general, and you're just looking at like inputs and outputs and then the system in between. So, something starts, you have process, something gets changed, attitude taken away, whatever, gets modified in some way in some process, and then you have an output. And a lot of times those outputs will affect the input at the beginning, and we call that feedback. And there's two main types of feedback, positive and negative. So negative feedback, the way I like to describe it is more gets you less. Okay, so if you look at this diagram right here, where is the output? What letter on the diagram is the output? Okay, and so when I ask you questions, you really should kind of stop the video and really see if you can answer things, right? These are things I'd be quizzing you in class and trying to pull things out of you. So yes, I'm probably going to have to give you the answer in the video, but really kind of push yourself to, pause yourself and see if you're keeping up and knowing how things go. So the output in this would be D, right? It's at the end of the chain reaction over here. Enzyme 1 turns A into B, enzyme 2 turns B into C, and enzyme 3 turns C into D. And then D is the output. And if you look, we're making more D over here on the other side. I don't know if the pen's going to work on my